Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Shane. Shane Eversfield, aka Zen Man, is much loved by the Women Swimmin community. He's an avid triathlete, total immersion swim master coach, and personal trainer at Island Health and Fitness. Let me spotlight him so you can see him. There he is. And let's see, sorry. He has been a beloved member of the Women Swimmin for Hospicare community, and he has helped many women in our community train for their voyage across Cayuga Lake. He gave us some great tips at his last webinar, and we're super excited to dive deeper with him tonight. Thank you, Shane, for being here, and I'll hand it over to you.
And thank you, Sarah. It is once again a great honor to be here. I don't have such a dynamic background here as Sarah did. She has the Moana, the outrigger canoe. From living in Hawaii, I remember outrigger canoes arriving all the way from Fiji or Tahiti, and being able to see them arrive, and the Hawaiians allowing us to come on board and check out their boats. However, I do have, this is Barry O. So Barry O, this is Barack Obama, who was born in Hawaii. He's going to be sitting here with me. So I do have a little bit of aloha spirit with me here while I go through this presentation. Once again, it's a tremendous honor. I really can't tell you how honored I feel and how grateful I feel to be able to offer insights and to support such a wonderful event. I've done hundreds of events around the world as an athlete. And for me, Women Swimmin is by far one of the most remarkable for the spirit that that really is so present in the event itself. And we have such a beautiful lake to swim in. Cayuga Lake is extraordinary. I have the opportunity to swim with my dear friend Beth many times a week from the West Shore, very close to the Yacht Club where you'll be swimming. We often swim very early in the morning, and it's just transformative for me to share that with her. I don't feel that I would enjoy it as much swimming alone, and that having that companionship and being able to share that experience is wonderful. So Women Swimmin is about sharing the experience of swimming together. At this point, we are now a little over a month away from the swim. Many of you have probably been spending a lot of time in pool training. The pool's a great place for us, as I mentioned in the previous presentation, for us to really work on our technique. It is a controlled environment, it's metered, it's predictable, it's stable, and the water is still. This allows us to focus inward and feel our own inner perception and awareness of our alignment, our head position, the biomechanics of our stroke, and the timing and synchronization of all of the individual parts of the swim stroke. It's an environment where we can focus on moving through the water without disturbing the water. So we're trying to be undetectable. The more undetectable we are, the easier it is for us to move through the water, the more the water allows us to move through it. This is an environment where we can really focus on that. So as a kind of analogy, imagine a musician and her studio practice. She is by herself in her studio, no distractions, just her and her instrument, and she's able to really focus on what she hears and how, when she plays, she can change the sound. And so there's the technique and the flow of the music, but it's just the individual, it's just that inner perception. Once we move into open water, things change. So Cayuga Lake is a beautiful lake. It's also lively and it's active. So when you swim in the lake, you have the opportunity to practice your craft, your technique that you've developed as you have been working in the pool. But now you're going to be bringing that craft, bringing that technique and that skill into the lake and into an ever-changing and dynamic environment. No longer do you have the measured length of the pool. No longer do you have the straight walls or the flat floor. You're not in a box anymore. You don't have to swim in the box. Now you get to swim out in the freedom of the lake. So you're no longer contained. As you lose this containment, the box, it's easy for us to lose sense of our inner perception, of still being aware of what's going on within us and how we orient and find our swim technique from our inner feeling. And this is the biggest transition in going to open water. When we go to open water, we now have to hold that inner perception, but we also want to expand and begin to be aware of what's going on around us. So because the water is now moving instead of being still, we want to move through the water without disturbing it, but we're now moving through moving water instead of still water. To return to the analogy of a musician, the musician arriving to practice with the group, the ensemble, the orchestra. Now there's this interaction, there's this much bigger environment of sound than the musician alone in the studio at home. Now she has to be able to hear what's everybody else is doing and respond to that. So it's similar for us when we go into open water. Is we're like the musician who is now practicing with other musicians, playing with other musicians. We want to play with that open water, with that moving water. So we're bringing our technique and our fitness to the lake. In the pool, we've developed our technique, but we've also developed or trained our aerobic fitness, the fitness that allows us to actually go the distance. So we have developed, hopefully we have a fluency with the language of swimming. We have enough of a fluency that we can begin to speak fluidly with others, like the musician. So beyond this fluency with your technique, the other thing that is most essential when you begin to swim in the lake is to be at ease and to relax so that you can respond to the moving water, so that you can dance with it. And this begins with the ease and confidence in your own fluency, in your own familiarity and intimacy with your swimming technique and your ability to hold that and still create it even when you're in the moving water. So again, for a musician to begin to play with others, if the musician is very nervous and tight, they won't have that ability to flow and to work with the other musicians. So this is we have to relax and trust. So let's explore a couple of elements that are key in a successful adaptation from the pool to the lake. And the two most important ones for me are your ability to orient in the lake. That is to kind of know where you are in space and then also to swim in a desired direction. The other, besides orientation, is that you are now moving in a lively, living water, not a still laboratory water. So let's begin with orientation. How significant is orientation in our lives? If we feel disoriented in any area of our lives, we often feel afraid. We begin to retreat inside and to hide. And our perceptive acuity begins to diminish. We're not acutely aware of what's going on around us. And so orientation, our ability to feel oriented in our environment, is very empowering and very essential for you in your experience of joy when you swim in the lake. So in the pool, we have lane lines, a flat floor, straight walls, as well as calm water. They all give us external cues for orientation. But all of these disappear when we get into the abyss of the lake. There's no more apparent boundaries or containment. So we no longer have the same visual cues for orientation. So in the pool, those visual cues are often below the surface. Now, if we want visual cues, those visual cues are going to be above the surface. And we're going to have to look at or train how to orient above the surface, but still maintain that swim technique. So before we get into that, I just want to step back for one moment and go into and just talk about something that I feel is really, really important for all of us. If you ever feel anxious or nervous when you get in the lake, let's say right when you get in, or let's say you've been swimming for a while and suddenly you feel uneasy. Here's something that I would suggest is pause, stop swimming for a moment. And I suggest that you always wear a swim buoy. So just kind of hug your swim buoy for a moment and acknowledge that you feel uneasy, that you feel fear, and notice that you're okay. Breathe slow and deep. Most importantly, remember to exhale. If all you do is inhale and you never exhale, you're not going to be able to take in air. So make sure that you inhale and exhale. As you are floating on your buoy or treading water, look around. Look at how beautiful it is in the lake. Look at where you are. Look at the scenery, the light. Look at how the water moves and how the light plays on the water. These things can help you to be at ease and to, again, open up to the environment around you. Just like the musician has to hear the beautiful notes and music that the other musicians are making in order to be inspired and guided and oriented to play. Pause and be grateful for your health and your fitness, because we're often swimming for those who don't have that. And so this is a gift for us. And I feel that when I am uneasy, especially when I'm doing events and I feel nervous, the best thing I can do is express gratitude. If I'm in a transition area in a triathlon, I will look around and I will talk to my fellow triathletes and say, what a beautiful day. I'm so happy to be here. I feel nervous, but I am healthy. And this is such a wonderful opportunity for me. Look at all the support that's around us. So these things, gratitude for me is a really important thing. Let's get back to orientation in the lake, okay? Visual cues are really, really our primary means of orienting, but also proprioception is really key. That's our inner perception, our ability to feel balance in our own bodies. In the pool, that's a great place to develop that. And for me, I often swim and my eyes are like offline. I'm really not using that visual cues at all. I'm feeling balance and I'm feeling orientation in the water with my eyes closed. I do that a lot in the lake as well. But how do we orient visually in the lake? How do we see and look around and know that we're swimming in the correct direction? Know that we feel like we're not getting lost in that abyss. So sighting above the water is the most important. And the way that we will sight is to keep, the most important thing about sighting is that when you are looking around above the water, you don't want to end up losing your balance, which means that your legs will drop and you'll start to slow down, you become inefficient, then you have to get back up again. If you keep doing that, it becomes very inefficient. But one way to sight, I'm just going to demonstrate here, so I'm going to move my chair for a moment, is I want to sight in front of me, okay? So the way I'm going to sight is As I swim, I'm keeping my head down. I'm hugging my grapefruit here. So as I swim, I'm keeping my chin like this. Imagine hugging a grapefruit. I don't want to be swimming like this. I want to keep and lead from the crown of my head right here. So as I'm swimming, when I want to sight out in front, I'm going to nod my head up and then down and breathe on a different stroke. So nod my head up, breathe, rather than trying to breathe and lift my head at the same time, because oftentimes that will cause us to really lose too much balance. Now, one thing I suggest is when you get in, you're going to have kayakers who are going to help you with your swim and make sure that you go in the right direction. There's probably swim buoys that you're going to swim towards. I'll talk a little bit about the actual course in a moment. But when you're swimming on your own in the lake or with your partners, and perhaps you don't have a kayak escort, but you've got your swim buoys, your big bright buoys, then as you swim, my suggestion is if you're swimming out into the lake, don't sight on something on the shoreline across the lake, sight up here on the ridge. Because as you're swimming, it's really easy to see something up higher than to see something at the water surface. So beforehand, or as you swim, pick out a point that's up high, that's prominent, that you can see, and sight on that, okay? Some less subtle or some more subtle ways of sighting are to observe that if I'm swimming this way and the angle of the sun is from the front, but coming on this angle, that I want to try and keep that angle about the same. This is a little more subtle. It's easy to kind of get turned on that a little bit, but it is something that I've used, is the angle of the sun. The other one is the angle at which the wind-generated chop is coming towards me. If it's coming from a particular direction, I'm going to try and keep that angle the same. That's if you want to sight in front, especially if you're swimming out into the lake. If you're swimming along the shoreline, then the easiest way is simply look to the side as you breathe, to the shoreline, and swim, contour the shore and keep an even distance out from that. These are ways that are easy for you to use visual sighting. There's also a much more subtle and elusive way of orienting, and that is simply feeling your alignment in the water from your head to your spine, and then having a symmetrical stroke and breathing on both sides. Then you may be able to swim in a straight line fairly confidently. Here's another tip for sighting that may be something that your kayakers can help you with. And that is, and this comes from the Hawaii Ironman. So at Hawaii Ironman, they have a paddle boarder in front of all of the swimmers as they take off. That paddle boarder has a rope that is dangling off the back of the paddleboard with a piece of bright ribbon or flagging on the end of it. And it sits maybe 2 or 3 feet below the surface, maybe 10 feet back from the board. This can allow you to have something to sight on underwater. So one thing you can do is work with kayakers and see if you can figure out a visual tail that you can sight on as you're swimming. Now, so that covers orientation, sighting. Now let's get into probably the most joyful and the most challenging part of swimming in open water, and that is the movement of the water. It's no longer still like in the pool. There are 3 primary ways in which water moves: currents, waves, and chop. So currents are really common in rivers, bays, tidal areas, but they're not so common in lakes unless you're near an inlet. If there is a current, they often are stronger when the water is shallower, when things get narrower, If you're swimming and there's a head current coming towards you, if you try to hug a point, if there's a point in the land and you're trying to swim around that point, you want to try and swim out farther rather than swimming right up against the point, because the current will be much stronger there if it's coming around there. It gets concentrated. Not so much something that may happen in the lake, but just something to be aware of. So that's current. Current is the whole body of water moving in one direction. Waves. Now, these are more prevalent in very large bodies of water, oceans, very large lakes like the Great Lakes, things like that. That is water that is moving in organized waves in a particular direction. They're generated by tides, by the moon. In the lake, the only waves we really get are boat wakes. So a boat will go by, and then in a little while you'll feel the waves of the boat. And they're usually pretty small and they're temporary. So waves and currents are not things that are very common for us to interact with, swim with, dance with when we're swimming. However, chop. So chop is the most common form of water movement in our lake, in Cayuga Lake. That is generated by wind. When the wind moves across the surface of the water, it moves the surface of the water. It creates waves, but the waves are now segmented. They're small. They're kind of chaotic. They pitch you up and down, but they usually come from one particular direction until the wind shifts. So for all three of these forms of movement, the most important thing is for you to relax and feel the water movement. Don't become stiff and try to conquer it. Feel it and learn how to dance with it and move through it. And relaxation, again, is the real key to this. If you're relaxed, you can perceive the water movement and you can learn how to move with it, through it, dance with it. You have to trust your body's sensations in order to do that. You have to trust the inner sensations to keep your technique. You have to trust the outer sensations to feel the water and bring those two together. You have to play with the water. This is to go back to the musician analogy. A musician has to interact and play with other musicians. They have to hear the other musicians. They have to relax. They have to trust their hearing and their fluency with their technique to respond to what they hear. But if they don't hear anything and they're just playing their great chops without playing with the other musicians, then they're not going to be blending in and they're going to stick out. So we can't control the movement of the lake. We can't control the chop. We can't control any of that, the movement of the lake. We have to go with the flow. A great analogy here is surfing. When people surf, especially big waves, they don't control those waves. And those waves are the extreme waves that people are surfing now are obviously deadly. Yet those surfers know how to flow with the power of the wave. They're not trying to control it. They're not trying to overcome it. They simply, I guess you could say, they surrender to it and they flow with it. So that's what we need to do. So coming back to wind-generated chop, which you may see out there on the day of your swim, there are three elements to it. The direction of the chop, which is determined by the direction of the wind. Typically in our lake, the winds tend to be north and south with slight variations, angles on that. It can be southeast, it can be southwest, northeast, northwest, and so forth. The strength of the wind speed, will determine the height of the chop, how high the ridges of water are that you are moving with, and will also determine and affect the rhythm of the chop. So both the height and the rhythm, and your swimming speed will also have part of an effect on the rhythm of the chop, how often the waves are coming at you or coming from the side or surfing from behind. So when you swim with chop, this is usually it's most challenging when you're swimming directly into the chop and you're feeling it coming at you from here. This can be disconcerting if you're not used to doing it. Most important things, if you feel when you start to experience these movements of the water, is to keep your body long. When you're swimming into the chop, keep that lead arm out and pierce through the water rather than trying to swim up over the water. Remember, if you keep that grapefruit below your chin, you're going to keep your head down. You're going to pierce right through that chop. And rather than being pitched up and over and down, you're going to swim through it and cut through it. So at first, this can be challenging because we feel as if we are being involuntarily submerged under the water. You're swimming and the water is washing over you. And our first feeling is like, oh my God, I want to get up above it. I don't want to be, feel like the water is washing over me. But one thing that can help you to kind of quell that panic is to realize that when you're below the surface of the water, it's really calm and it's really quiet. But you get above the surface of the water and chop, and it's like this. You're getting pitched up and down and so forth. So you really want to try and stay underneath of it and trust that you're still going to be able to get breath and you're still going to be able to swim and maintain your forward momentum and still feel graceful in that. So the most important aspect of that is going to be, how do you breathe when you're feeling this submersion in this chop? First of all, bilateral breathers, people who are comfortable breathing to either side, have a real asset there, because you can choose which side you want to breathe. And one side may be easier than the other. You have to kind of experiment and see which side you feel more comfortable breathing. And so one thing I think is also really important when you're swimming into the chop, especially head into it, is keep your aerobic effort reserved. Don't swim as hard as you can. The reason is because you want to avoid the feeling of getting breathless. Like, if I don't get this breath, I'm going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to be gasping. Make your effort level very reserved and sustainable. Keep it relaxed so that if you don't get the breath on the stroke, you go to breathe over here and the wave goes over your head, you're okay. You can wait until the next stroke, whichever one that is. So the key to knowing when to breathe when you're swimming with chop, especially when you're swimming head into it, is that if you are relaxed and calm, your sensations and your instinct will direct your breathing and your stroke cadence. It'll help you to determine a rhythm that's going to work. It's like dancing. When you dance, you have to listen to the music in order to move with it. So in the chop, this is like robust or strong music. You have to listen to it. You have to feel it. You have to know what the rhythm of that movement is, so you can move with it. For more than any other open water condition for me, feeling my way through headwind chop when the wind is blowing directly towards me and the waves are coming at me is the most engaging and most challenging. But when I'm relaxed, I really enjoy it. I had the wonderful experience in the U.S. Virgin Islands. There were a few of us swimming there. and we had 4-foot chop. This was not waves. This was, 4 foot above the trough to the peaks were about 4 feet. I mean, it's a good thing we didn't have a kayak escort. And yet, by staying kind of underneath the water, it was so calm, and we enjoyed it so much. It was absolutely amazing experience. And I'm sure that many channel swimmers and real experienced open water swimmers have had even much greater experiences with that than me. Again, through all of it, my cadence as I swim with chop is going to change. So normally I would have a very smooth rhythm, but it may be that I wait and then I get a couple strokes, and then I wait depending on how the waves are going. So if the wave coming over me, I may glide for a little bit, and then when I get through that wave, take a couple strokes and glide again as another wave comes over, and so forth. So that cadence, that rhythm is going to change, and therefore my breath and my stroke length are going to change. Through all of that, I really focus on maintaining length from my fingertips to my toes, keeping my body really long. Look at a ship in the water. The longer the ship is, the less it's going to get pitched around, the more steady it's going to be. Keep your body line long. If you start to panic, think about keeping that hand reached out in front. Keep your legs long behind you. So when you're swimming, if the chop is now coming from the side rather than from the head. So a lot of what I talked about now, up till now, has been the most challenging, which is having that water just pounding at you from the front. When it's coming from the side, then single side breathing can often be an advantage. So if I've got the chop coming this way, I'm just going to be breathing over on this side most of the time. Sometimes I've found that when the chop is coming from here, it's actually easier to breathe on that side, but that's rare. You just have to find out what's working for you. And again, even just like with the headwind chop, you still have to be flexible with your cadence, flexible and relaxed with your breathing, flexible and relaxed with how you dance with the water, and continue to keep your vessel long and minimize vertical movement. And when you're swimming downwind, so now the chop is coming from behind you, you get to enjoy the ride. It's like surfing. So you can feel yourself kind of ride on the waves for a little bit, and you're going to be moving a lot faster than when you're swimming into a headwind. So this can be, if you change direction and you're now swimming downwind, this is a really good time to slow your cadence down, reduce your effort level, and just kind of recover and regroup. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the actual course that you're going to swim. So my understanding is that if you are swimming on the west side, from the west shore of the lake, okay, so here's the Yacht Club here. You're going to swim out towards the other shore, towards the east shore, but probably a little bit towards the north. Then you're going to make a right turn, swim parallel with the shore for a while out, and then you're going to come back into the Yacht Club. So you're going to have a triangle. So you're going to have, whatever direction the wind is coming from, you're going to have the opportunity to swim with various directions of movement from the water. So again, our lake is predominantly north and south winds, slightly east or west as you go. So expect, but who knows, on that day, it could be very glassy, it could be lively. But expect that you're probably going to be swimming with the chop to the side as you swim out and back. The first time on one side, and then as you turn and come back, you'll experience it from the other side. So you may be, it may be coming from the left side as you go out and the right side as you come back, depending on the wind direction. As you turn south, when you're out in the lake and you're swimming down south parallel to the shore, you may have a little bit of headwind chop or a little bit of tailwind chop, depending on which direction it's coming from. But either way, the most important thing is relax and remember that in the pool, you don't get to dance with the water. It's still, it's kind of dead. Here, you have this ability, this opportunity to really enjoy and dance with that water, interact with it, play with it. So one thing that's really important as you're swimming is you're going to have a lot of kayakers out there, a lot of support. Relax and know that they're there to support you and they're going to take care of you. They will help you with orientation. If you're not sure what direction you're going, if you get off course, they're going to assist you. In Women Swimmin', don't hesitate to take a hold of a kayak as long as you don't tip them over. Just relax. But if you need to rest for a moment, it's okay. It's okay to rest. Remember, if you're doing that, look around, talk to somebody, and realize how beautiful it is and what a wonderful experience it is. So just a quick summary, and then we'll take some questions, is swim long. What I mean by that is lengthen your spine, lengthen your arms, lengthen your legs. Keep your head low. Think about a grapefruit here if you want, one of those, not those big, huge GMO grapefruits, but a small pink one, maybe about like this big. Allow the chop, the movement of the water to inspire your stroke, cadence, and rhythm and your breathing. Just like a musician allows the other musician's sounds and interpretations to guide, inspire, and guide their playing. Just a couple of other things if you're wearing a wetsuit. First of all, learn how to put it on so it fits and allows you the mobility you need to move your arms. If you can't put a wetsuit on like you put on a shirt and pants, it takes some pulling and puckering and whatnot. I wrote a piece for a triathlete magazine years ago. I'll be happy to send you that manuscript. You can get in touch with me through email. And then practice swimming in your wetsuit. The thing with wetsuit swimming is you're more buoyant, you slide through the water easier. Oftentimes your cadence, the movement of your arms is going to be a little faster than what you're used to in the pool. So get in and play with the wetsuit and enjoy it. Final month of training, the most important tips are get in the lake and swim if you can. Swim with a swim buoy and your companions. Always start out with a slow cadence and an easy effort so you can find your length. Make sure your body is long when you swim. Start by overemphasizing the glide when you first get in the lake, especially if the water is moving. Notice when your body's really long, you can cut right through. Those are the most important things, I think. And then just be able to orient and feel comfortable being in the lake. If you remember, I want to just review this and then we'll take some questions. If you feel anxious or nervous, stop swimming. Whether this is when you're training or during the Women Swimmin', stop swimming, pause, hold on to your buoy for a moment. Feel that you're okay. Yeah, I feel a little bit anxious. I'm nervous, but there's no apparent danger while I'm right here. Breathe slow and deep. Remember to exhale. Look around. Look at the scenery. The lake is beautiful. Even the houses along the lake. There's so many different kinds of architecture there. I've seen eagles so many times out there. So many different types of birds flying around. The light, the sunlight, the clouds, the rain. All of it is so beautiful. Pause and be grateful for the fact that you are there, that you have the health and the fitness to be there. Remember that 1%, 1/10 of the world's population has the health, the wealth, and the cultural and political freedom to enjoy an active fitness lifestyle. We're very fortunate. And then when you're ready to swim again, start easy and keep your body long. So as you're swimming, focus on, when you're out there and you need something to occupy your mind, focus on elements of your technique that you focused on in the pool. Focus on lengthening your body from your fingertips to your toes. Imagine that grapefruit here under your chin. that keeps your spine really long and keeps your spine stable. Focus on a relaxed recovery and a smooth entry. Focus on strong core rotation, your ability to rotate your body. Focus on your breathing, your rate of respiration, and your choice of which side to breathe and how often you breathe. Make sure you are exhaling. Focus on any sensations that arise in your flow of swimming that direct your attention, and really be curious about what you're feeling, both in your body and in the water. Some other things you can do are count your strokes or your breath. If you're feeling kind of agitated or a little anxious, start to count 1, 2, 3, or your breath. 1, 2. These things will bring you into your movement brain and get you out of that word brain that just doesn't do so well with swimming. So that counting can make you feel calmer and more present in the moment. And again, relax and be grateful. So that's what I have. I'm happy to take some questions. And I'll turn this back over to Sarah and see if she has anything.
Thank you, Shane. That was really great.
Barrio says hi.
Yeah. Have you ever been on an outrigger sailboat?
No, I have not.
Yeah, looks like a good ride. So everyone, thank you for being here. Please feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question, turn off your video if you'd like. Shane is a unique opportunity to pick Shane's brain and all his experience about your relationship to swimming and to the lake. So I'm just going to open it up to anyone in the audience to raise their hand or unmute, ask a question. You can always put it into the chat box if you're not able to unmute at this time. Okay. We had a couple of questions that came in from the registration process, so I'll start with those because I think there's some good questions here that will be really helpful for everyone. So you did speak about the wetsuit a little bit, but if you could talk about also kicking tips while you're wearing a wetsuit and overall swim tips or stroke tips while wearing one.
So a couple things with wetsuits is most of them are designed to give you more buoyancy in your hips and your legs. So if you're used to kicking to try and keep your legs up on the surface, you're not going to have to do that anymore. They're just going to trail out behind you. If you don't know what to do with your legs, just let them relax and let them kind of, wave like tentacles rather than trying to make a lot of movement with them. And again, it really does, wetsuits really help you with balance. If you've been a tail dragger, then you're going to find that it's going to keep you up. But I wouldn't be too concerned with trying to kick your way across the lake. As far as another tip with swimming with wetsuits is you may need to use body glide, especially around the neck. Some people chafe around the neck. The other thing I notice is in a wetsuit, I move through the water faster because of the buoyancy, because I'm up higher, and also because the surface of the wetsuit itself, the water flows more smoothly over that than over skin. Those things mean that my turnover, my cadence, the movement of my arms is faster in open water than it is in the pool. So that's something that I've been practicing with, is getting that turnover quickly. Most important for me when I'm doing that is to not fling my hand around. If I feel like I want to make this faster, moving the hand around doesn't do it. Shrugging the shoulder and just kind of lobbing the arm out is a really good way of quickening that without feeling like you're getting inefficient. So those are really, other than that, it's like you just have to get in and swim in the wetsuit.
The way you describe it makes me want to try it. It sounds like it would help make swimming easier.
Oh, it does. It's like cheating. It really
But you
is.
can wear
And-
one
and-
for Women Swimmin, so that's no
And I'm
choice.
like, unlike Jamie, I have like zero body fat and I am in a wetsuit like all the time.
For those that weren't on that call, Jamie Monahan was an ice water swimmer that came and presented. So that's what Shane's referring to.